Right now, all the world's focus is on Israel as the first of the 13 hostages have been released and are now in the process of being processed back into their society. And everybody is, of course, waiting with bated breath to find out what they've experienced. We're looking forward to, is this the first of many tranches? Will there be four separate rounds of this in the next 4 days? Maybe even extend to an additional 50 beyond for a total of potentially 100 over 5 or 6 days. So it's really very riveting and emotional, especially because some of these people who are coming back have lost loved ones and they don't even know yet. Many of them think they're going to be reunited with their family, and it's just excruciating that they're not going to know until they get brought back in. But the problem is the war is not over. No matter how this hostage dilemma plays out, there is going to be more fighting after it. In fact, just yesterday, the Israeli chief of staff said this.
We are not ending the war. We will continue until we are victorious, going forward and continuing in other Hamas areas.
Now, that's the military scope. In terms of the strategy and the objective for the Israeli Defense Forces and what the government of Israel is seeking to attain, the end state that you heard Doug McGregor and I discuss last week, the elusive end state, what are they trying to accomplish? A former Israeli ambassador and current advisor to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said this.
The UN has called for a humanitarian ceasefire to end all the fighting, full stop. And that leaves Hamas in power. And the UN is wrong on that issue, because to call for a ceasefire that leaves Hamas in power means that we're going to have more October 7th. They have said, given the opportunity, they would do it again and again and again.
But let me ask you this. Even if you manage to eradicate Hamas infrastructure in Gaza, their ideas, their international backers, and other militant groups wishing to wipe Israel off the map will prevail. So what is the end game here?
I don't think it's true. The West defeated ISIS in Syria and Iraq, and in both countries they were better off without ISIS. And in the same way, Gaza will be better off without Hamas rule. But once this regime is destroyed, you will hear from Gaza an outpouring of pent-up anger against Hamas for starting this war and creating all this destruction.
Okay, now you had a point there that it's true that the fighting is going to be very difficult. It's true that Hamas did explicitly say we're going to keep going, we're going to keep doing October 7th at all, basically tying Israel's hands now. How could they actually have a negotiated settlement with the group? It's saying, yeah, it doesn't matter. We're still going to continue doing this. The same thing that you hated happening, we're going to plan for doing it more. Given that circumstance, there's no government on the planet that could say, all right, well, bummer, but let's go ahead and negotiate an end to the war. They can't do that. But they are now in just a no-win situation, because by saying we're going to continue to go for the destruction of Hamas, they're setting themselves up for an unattainable military mission. Now, he said in there, yeah, there's a precedent for this. The West, you defeated ISIS in Iraq and in Syria, and they're better off for it. Let's take a look at that claim a little bit closer. Here's what President Bush said of the U.S. objectives in 2006.
As we make progress toward victory, Iraqis will continue to take more responsibility for their own security, and fewer U.S. forces will be needed to complete the mission. But it's important for the Iraqis to hear this. The United States will not abandon Iraq. We will not leave that country to the terrorists who attacked America and want to attack us again. We will leave Iraq, but when we do, it will be from a position of strength, not weakness. Americans have never retreated in the face of thugs and assassins, and we will not begin now.
Again, just like right now, there's so much emotion and passion in the middle of that. That was at the height of the uprising in Iraq against the U.S. forces, and it turned into a counterinsurgency fight. And he was being strong, and we're going to do this from a position of strength, and then we'll leave once we're ready. We're still there. Okay, let that sink in. We're still in Iraq to this day, and everybody keeps telling us how we can't withdraw now. That's what they're saying. More on that in just a second. Now, fast forward to 8 years later, 2014, when President Obama was talking about the other half of what the Israeli ambassador said about ISIS.
Tonight, I want to speak to you about what the United States will do with our friends and allies to degrade and ultimately destroy the terrorist group known as ISIL. As Commander-in-Chief, my highest priority is the security of the American people. Over the last several years, we have consistently taken the fight to terrorists who threaten our country. We took out Osama bin Laden and much of al-Qaeda's leadership in Afghanistan and Pakistan. We've targeted al-Qaeda's affiliate in Yemen and recently eliminated the top commander of its affiliate in Somalia. We've done so while bringing more than 140,000 American troops home from Iraq and drawing down our forces in Afghanistan, where our combat mission will end later this year. Thanks to our military and counterterrorism professionals, America is safer.
Now, that's what President Obama wanted to be true. He wanted to say all of these things, these military objectives, these military and tactical operations that we're doing, they're making us safer today. We're going to keep doing them. Almost everything he said in there turned out to be wrong. He specifically mentioned bin Laden, took out bin Laden. Bin Laden was replaced by Ayman al-Zawahiri. Al-Qaeda continued to function, and then al-Zawahiri was killed not too long ago. Another person has taken over. The organization is still out there. Taking out the leaders is not going to make any difference. He also specified that we'd taken out leaders in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan. All those places, we're still there. We're still trying to fight. We haven't eliminated anything. Because as that young woman pointed out, who was interviewing the ambassador, she said, look, this is an idea. You can't kill an idea. What are you going to do? And now then you see, that's the same thing the United States had said. And now you see almost 2 decades later, none of those things have been eliminated, because that's not how it works. You can't eliminate the threat of an idea. Now, you can keep yourself safe, and there are military ways to do that. And we've been very successful since 9/11 at keeping ourselves safe. So we can be safe, but none of these operations that we've been conducting over all this time have had anything to do with the safety of it, because that's not the way that you actually defend against a terrorist attack from anywhere in the world, not just those handful of places that we have troops there. It's almost like, well, I dropped a quarter somewhere in the backyard, but there's lights in the front yard, so I'm going to go look there. That's not where you dropped it. Well, but it's easier to do it here. That's the same situation here. You can't be having operations in these handful of like pins on a map and then realizing that the entire world has the possibility of fostering terrorist operations against you. Israel's got an even worse situation than that, because this is, literally on their doorstep and in their backyard. But if they think that they're going to succeed by militarily destroying the idea, they are going to be badly mistaken. And they're going to be very disappointed in the end, because you can have these kinds of, you see these strikes that are going, there's incredibly powerful strikes that are going on. They're wiping out entire parts of the city. Perversely, they're laying the foundation for more trouble for Israel. This is not a defense of Hamas, for God's sake. It never will be. I will never, under any circumstances, even give an asterisk of support to Hamas. What they have done is barbarous. It's incomprehensible. It's indefensible. But if the objective is Israeli security, they're going to have to do something different, or they're going to be reaping the same kinds of permanent problems for themselves that they've had already for decades, except even worse. Now, even in the United States, we haven't learned our lesson either, because just days ago, John Kirby went before the American, I believe it was Fox News, and said this.
We're not looking to escalate, but we absolutely have a viable mission in Iraq and Syria to go after ISIS, which is still a viable threat. And we got to make sure that we have the troops and the capabilities to do that, which means they need to know that we're going to do what we have to do to protect them. I would note that the flurry of attacks that occurred just in the wake of the strikes we took over the weekend were ineffective, no injuries, no significant damage, and most of them were intercepted.
So do you see there? That's 9 years from when Obama said, yes, we're going to take out ISIS in Syria. And we're still there. We're going to, Bush from 2006 said, yes, we're going to leave in our position of strength. And now you hear John Kirby saying, yeah, we don't even have a plan to leave. We're going to continue to say it's because of the allegation, the claim that somehow that's keeping us safe and we have this viable mission. That's nonsense. We're never going to beat that. And Israel's even worse, because they have, it's physically on their strip, and now it's the whole population. If Israel is going to succeed, if Israel is going to have any chance to bring peace to their people, they're going to have to do something different. And listen, I'll just flat out say it. There's no easy answer. It's not like I can say, oh, well, that ambassador should have said this instead, and then everything will be fine, because it's not going to be fine. They are in a terrible no-win situation right now, and they're going to have to do something different to find a different outcome. And there are some possibilities of things that can be done, but I can just say with great deal of confidence that if they pursue the current course of action, things will get worse for Israel. They will not get better. And that's going to mean that there's going to be some changes, that they can't just say, okay, we're going to destroy everything in the Gaza Strip until there's no more enemies, then we'll be safe, because you can't do that. The more you destroy, the more enemies you make. This is self-evident. This is not some shocking revelation. This is not based on some incredible, insight that I have. You can just look on your TV screens and imagine if that's your city and your friends and family are getting wiped out. Are you going to be at peace with the people that launched those weapons? Of course you're not, and neither are they. So Israel is going to have to do something they don't want to do, and they're going to have to show some respect and value for the Palestinian people. And this distinguish again from the Hamas terrorists who murdered Israeli civilians. They don't count, and you are going to have to do something with them. And it's a lot harder to go after them in targeted ways that could take years, as opposed to trying to wipe out the Gaza Strip in a few months, which is physically possible, but it's just strategically catastrophic for Israel, and they can't do it, and for the Palestinian people, because they count too. And because every people around the world count. We have to recognize that it's not just Israel, it's also the Palestinian people. And some way for these people to coexist so that there's not perpetual terrorism and perpetual attacks one against the other, something's going to have to be different. This is not a news that anybody wants to hear on this side. It's not information that anybody in Israel wants to hear, and the emotions are sky high, and I understand that. But I'm just pleading with them to understand that if they want to make things better, they're going to have to temper their emotions. They're going to have to do some things they don't want to do, but that will have a possibility of bringing at least long-term stability to the situation instead of making it worse. That's all we have for you today. We're going to continue to follow this very dynamic situation as it continues to unfold. We will remain unintimidated and uncompromised, and giving you the information you need, because we are in this together with you all the way through. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next episode of Daniel Davis Deep Dive.